Alrighty, so before I do the preview of all 15 of these games for match week number 7 of the 2025 MLS regular season, I first want to quickly mention that I'll be on the road tomorrow and actually going to be away from home for a day. So most likely I will not be able to watch most of the action on Saturday, though there will be still a chance that I can watch some of the Sunday action, including one of the game that I'm actually going to be attending, which is the San Jose Earthquakes versus DC United, and that's kind of an anniversary game because it was right around this time back in 1996. We saw the first ever MLS game between the San Jose Earthquakes versus DC United, and definitely want to attend that game to join the celebration. And especially, I'm kind of a little bit disappointed the fact that that is not the Sunday night soccer game. And I know throughout this season I have kind of made some complaints about some certain games that should be the Sunday night soccer game because that's supposed to be the marquee kind of game that MLS seems to market as the game of the week. But with the way that this Sunday night soccer game and it feels like it's Messi and friends probably gonna have a chance to demolish against a team that's winless. And I say Messi and friends. We'll see whether or not if Messi will play in this game as well. I feel like as I'll mention in a little bit, if you're going to celebrate the first ever MLS game that happened about 3 decades ago, why not have the San Jose Earthquakes versus DC United game be your feature game? But that being said, let us begin by talking about the matinee games on Saturday. So as usual, we get two matinee games this week, starting off with Charlotte FC versus Nashville SC. So there's actually a couple of rivalry game this weekend. This definitely is considered one of them. Consider whenever these two southeastern club get each other, things are going to be interesting. But especially this is going to be a marquee matchup in terms of two teams that have definitely done relatively well to start this season, and kind of opposite of what they are this season. For Charlotte, they're a very defensive kind of team. For Nashville, it seems like they're more of a possession team right now and can score goals as well. But both of these teams have a 3-1-2 record, as this game will be a 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific start. And the head-to-head, two wins apiece and one draw for both of these teams. And do not be surprised if this could be also a preview of what we see in the playoffs. I mean, depending on where each of these teams finish, there could be a chance that we could see this as a playoff matchup, and I would definitely enjoy this playoff matchup because again, these teams seems to have a great start to the season, and not to mention, seems like they're very well coached. We know Dean Smith is one of the better head coach in MLS, but it feels like you could start to say the same about BJ Callahan, especially the fact that he started to figure things out for this Nashville team and especially implement his system to this Nashville team. That this team definitely are playing up to back to where they were a couple of years ago, of a team that usually make the playoffs out of the Eastern Conference. And then we get the next matinee game, which is a 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific start. And this game, yeah, not so much as a marquee matchup in terms of the matinee. It's RSL versus the LA Galaxy. I mean, I think when they scheduled in the beginning of the season, they were hoping that both of these teams were going to be decent and it's going to be a great matchup. But yeah, both of these teams are definitely struggling to start the season. For RSL, it's 2-0-4 is their record, and not only they have been inconsistent at time this season, but they have been inconsistently bad at time, especially the last game against Minnesota, where they were pretty much toothless in that game against Minnesota. And they're playing against a Galaxy team that you expect they probably might rest some of their starters, especially with that big game down in Mexico and that impossible task to try to get a resort down in Mexico and against Tigres at El Volcan. But at the same time, they're also looking to end this winless run and the longest winless run we have seen a defending MLS Cup champion has ever got in league history with an 0-2-4 start. Head-to-head meeting 25 15 and 20 in favor of the Galaxy. Of course, both of these teams met each other a lot time in recent memory. So, yeah, we'll see how this game, of course, would turn out. Obviously, we've seen before when RSL does play against a team that participates in the CONCACAF Champions Cup and they take advantage of that. We saw it earlier this season against Seattle. We'll see whether or not if they can take advantage against a struggling Galaxy side. And then we get to the 7:30 starts. So yeah, there's a lot of 7:30 starts. In fact, there's going to be at one point where what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's going to be 8 games at a time. In terms of this week, and we start off with the busy 7:30 starts and one of the the 5 game starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, with an interconference matchup between Atlanta United and FC Dallas. So this is a matchup that both of these teams don't meet each other very often. In fact, it's been a while since I've seen this matchup before between both of these teams. Especially, it's been a while since both of these teams play at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But Atlanta with a 2-2-2 record, Dallas with a 3-1-2 record. Head-to-head meeting 2-1 and 2 is the head-to-head meeting. And this one, I would not be surprised we might see some fireworks in this game because both of these teams, especially for Atlanta, we have seen them play some really entertaining brand of soccer, and it feels like this season they can only win games that is high scoring. I mean, the 2 wins that they had was against Montreal, which ended 3-2, and then last week in that come from behind win against NYCFC, a dramatic come from behind win where they went down 3-1 and came back to win 4-3. So we'll see whether or not if they're gonna have another dramatic uh home win with high scoring affair because you're facing against a Dallas team that this season they've been very inconsistent when it comes to how their offense have. When their offense is doing well, yeah, they're involved high scoring game. When they're not doing well, yeah, they're definitely they not involving high scoring game. But I have a feeling they could be involving the high scoring game. Consider Atlanta this season. As much as they have won these high scoring games, they also have lost some games when the attack hasn't really been up to speed, and the defense this season for Atlanta has been absolutely woeful. I mean, they have given up a lot of goals to begin the tenure under Ronnie Delia, and that's something that there's no doubt the front office is going to have to try to fix. I mean, obviously the front office, I know they're implementing that this team wants to be kind of like that fun Atlanta team as we've seen before under Tata Martino. But there's one thing to bring back that fun style of soccer of them scoring a lot of goals, but you still need a defense to try to prevent those goals from going in. And so far, this Atlanta team, yeah, they have leaked a lot of goals this season. It doesn't matter how good your attack is. If you're leaking goals left and right, you're not going to win a lot of games unless you keep winning 3-2 or 4-3 resort. And we know you can't simply just rely on that. That's not sustainable throughout the season to get yourself to bare minimum a playoff team this season as Atlanta should be. Now, moving on, we got FC Cincinnati versus the New England Revolution. So Cincinnati, they got that big win against Nashville and a much needed win as well because things were very dire for Pat Nolan's side. They have kind of got off to a really slow start to this season to their standards, but they have a 3-1-2 record against a New England team that finally got their first win of the season, and most importantly, finally scored their first goal of the season last week. That is by a Revs player. They have a 1-1-3 record. In terms of the head-to-head meeting, this is kind of interesting. New England has the ownage over Cincinnati in recent years. 6-3-2 is the record over New England. So there's no doubt the Revs will be confident that they do have that good history against Cincinnati. But again, we'll see whether or not last week resort for New England might be a start of something good to come. I mean, you're assuming that that is the case because whatever team is on a bad winless run, if you can get that one win and get that positive vibes in the locker room of getting your first 3 points, it puts a lot of pressure off it, and definitely puts your monkey off the back and maybe gives you some confidence heading into the next game. And especially against the Cincinnati side that this season, they have not been great this season at home. I think they've only won like once this season at home. No, they actually won twice this season at home. I forgot about they win against the Red Bulls on the opening weekend, and then they of course beat TFC. But yeah, I mean, besides that, they've been kind of mediocre and pedestrian at home, and that was a problem for Pat Nolan's side last season as well. They're a very good road team, but at home they're a little bit pedestrian for a team that should be considered one of the top tier team in the Eastern Conference. And then we have the Wilfred Nancy derby between Columbus versus Montreal. I mean, I guess it's still the Wilfred Nancy derby. I mean, I want to call this the Wilfred Nancy versus his apprentice, the master versus the apprentice derby. But obviously, Laurent Courtois no longer the head coach of Montreal there. So I guess we might as well revert this back as the Wilfred Nancy derby as Columbus face against Montreal. Columbus, despite the fact that they're not playing they haven't been playing well, and that goal scoring is still a big problem for this team. They're still unbeaten this season with a 3-3-0 record against a Montreal team that's still searching for the first win. But there's no doubt that after last week game they have there's no doubt that there's going to be some confidence that things are going to go well for this Montreal team. I thought they played relatively well against Chicago. I think they were very unlucky to not get their first win against Chicago with the chances that they created. And there's no doubt that the new coach boost, or in this case, the new interim head coach boost, has worked for this Montreal team. But this is a tall task against a Columbus team that every time when Wilfred Nancy played against Montreal, he circled this day closely, considering that he definitely want to get revenge on this Montreal team that kind of screwed him over during his time when he was the tenure of the head coach of Montreal. But all-time meeting 15-6-10 in favor of Columbus, and yeah, we'll see whether or not if Columbus can get another win, especially can they get their goal scoring going against a Montreal team that this season they have been pretty leaky when it comes to their defensive end. Now, moving on, we got the New York Red Bulls versus the Chicago Fire. So the New York Red Bulls would definitely want to have a bounce back performance after they played probably the worst performance that they ever played last game, handing New England their first ever win. Well, it's not going to be easy because they face against a Chicago team that this season it feels like they can only win on the road. All three wins this season has been on the road. They have a perfect record this season on the road. And in terms of the all-time meeting, 34, 16, and 23 in favor of the Chicago Fire. So yeah, there's no doubt that again, what's kind of interesting about this matchup is that in some way something's gonna kind of have to give because the Red Bulls this season actually have done much better at home compared to when they're playing on the road, and Chicago, of course, be much better on the road compared to them being at home. They're still searching for their first home win, despite the fact that they've been perfect on the road. So something's gonna have to give. We'll see who, of course, will have that early season narrative break. Where is it going to be the Red Bulls continue that strong home form, or will Chicago continue this perfect record on the road? If you imagine, I say that about the Chicago Fire. I mean, even I know under Greg Berhalter, and feels like this is a different kind of team. I would have not expected the Chicago Fire to still be perfect on the road, and are the only team right now this season to still remain absolutely perfect on the road of winning all three of their road games. And then we go to the next one, which is the Philadelphia Union versus Orlando City. This is a very underrated game. I think of some of the big matchup that we've seen this weekend. This is one that I think could fly under the radar because it's between two teams that have been kind of getting, with one of them kind of getting a surprising things good start to the season, and another that surprisingly are not getting off to a slow start to the season, as we've seen with Orlando City have done in the past. But for the Union, they are definitely the surprising team. I thought this was supposed to be a rebuilding and restructure year, but they jumped out to a 4-0-2 record. Yes, I know things haven't gone so well in the last couple of games. They have definitely cooled off a little bit, but even in that loss against Inter Miami, I thought they played relatively well, and it's just unfortunate the fact that they just ran into Miami. I mean, there's really no shame of losing to Inter Miami, especially when you're playing on the road and they're playing against an Orlando side that, again, I think the thing I will say about Orlando and why maybe people don't give them as much respect, despite the fact that they're definitely off to a better start compared to the last two seasons for Oscar Pereira, they haven't really beat anyone meaningful. And I think this will be the toughest task and a way to kind of send the message to the rest of the league that, yeah, this team is definitely going to get themselves back to where they were last season and a chance to get themselves back to the Eastern Conference Final with 3-1-2 record. But in terms of the head-to-head matchup, 9-6-8 in favor of the Philadelphia Union. And yeah, like I said, it's a very marquee matchup, a very underrated marquee matchup that won't be surprised if this could be a matchup that we could see in the playoffs if both of these teams keep going where they are in the standings down the line. And then we move on into the next one. And oh, by the way, did I mention the fact that both of these teams also met each other in the first game of the season? So this is also one of the rare matchup where this is already the final matchup between the Union and Orlando City. And the Union definitely got a big win against Orlando City. So there's no doubt Orlando would love to have some revenge against the Union in this game. But now moving on into the last 7:30 start, and technically this is not a 7:30 start, but I just put it there because it starts around the same time. It's Austin versus the Portland Timbers, 7:45 p.m. Eastern, 4:45 p.m. Pacific. It's a Fox Network game, so the kickoff is going to be 25 minutes after. Austin, of course, another team that's kind of off to an impressive start. I mean, I want to say that they're off to a surprising start, but I think with the way that the signings that they made this off season, I think you kind of knew that Austin was going to be better. But what's kind of interesting about Austin is that while I was expecting the attack was going to be good I did not expect this defense to look so much better this season compared to last year. Like last year, and really for the past couple of years, this Austin defense has been absolutely train wreck. And Brad Stuver, he can only do so much to bail out a defense that's pretty much been non-existent. This season has been different. They have been absolutely locked down in defense, and it's actually the attack that's been the issue, despite the fact that they spent a lot of money on. Now they face against a Timber side that definitely has been rejuvenating the last couple of games and definitely find their goal scoring form as well with back-to-back games where they score free goals. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 6-1 and 3 in favor of the Portland Timbers, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it is. I mean, you can say in some way it's kind of the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. Austin has been just so good this season on the defensive end. They haven't conceded a lot of goal against the Timber side. That is definitely red hot in the last two games in terms of goal scoring, and as expected to. We knew this Timber side is is going to be a team that can score a lot of goals. It's about keeping the ball out their back of the net. That's always been an issue, and not surprisingly, this season that has been an issue at times for this Timber size as well. Now, moving on into the later start, we're now talking about the 8:30 p.m. Eastern and the late West Coast kickoff, and there's not really a lot of them. Only four of them, including two West Coast game. Well, you can say there's only one that starts at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. As this game, even though it's a West Coast start, it starts an hour early. But the first 8:30 p.m. Eastern 5:30 p.m. Pacific start is the Houston Dynamo against LAFC. So, for the Houston Dynamo, I think out of all the winless team that is remaining out there, they might have the best chance to finally get themselves their first win. And I know you might think they have a chance when they're facing against LAFC. Well, I think LAFC most likely could punt this game away. Again, I do think I do think that for Steve Cherno, you could say that he might be just maybe rest most of his guys because he need all the legs possible for that second leg game against Inter Miami. As well as they play in the first leg, they need to keep that intensity in the second leg. And with that game being in mind, it's very easy for LAFC to overlook their league game and especially resting their guys and punting games away. We've seen this before where teams have done this where they punt the game away because they're focusing on the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So yeah, like I said, this is a chance for Houston to finally get that first win. In the last game against the Timbers, I mean they definitely showed some promise, but still, you can definitely see the incomplete piece, especially on the attacking end, and we'll see whether or not if that can figure it out. Even though again against an LAFC team, I think they're probably going to put a weaker team. If they do start a pretty strong team, I would be kind of surprised. Consider again, I think Steve Cherno got to realize that they need all the first team and all the fresh leg that they can get against Inter Miami. And I also wouldn't be surprised if maybe LAFC might do what we see with other teams in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Maybe put some of your starters in the beginning, eventually sub them out, or the other way around, where you put some of your reserve in and maybe put the starters in if the game are still well in reach. Now, moving on, we got another big rivalry game between Sporting KC versus St. Louis. Now, normally this game is actually a stand-alone game, so I'm kind of surprised the fact that this game is among the mesh of games that's going to be happening on Saturday night, but I can kind of understand because of the fact that, yeah, this game is between two teams that are definitely not doing very well to begin the season. For Sporting KC, this has been a disastrous start of the season, but this is the first time where they're going to be they're going to be managed by a manager that is not named Peter Ramirez. I mean, it's hard to believe that that's the first time that has happened since 2009. It's been that long since we last see Peter Ramirez no longer on the touchline. It's going to be a weird feeling for Sporting KC fans when they don't see their old head coach being there. Although I'm pretty sure for most Sporting KC fans, they're pretty welcome for that because that move seems like it's long overdone. And we'll see whether or not they can get a new interim head coach boost against their biggest rival. I mean, I'm assuming they got to because you're playing against your biggest rival in St. Louis City, who again are off to a very pedestrian start to the season. The big issue for St. Louis this season, they just cannot get the attack going for most games. I mean, their attack has been flat at best, and we've seen it in the last couple of games. We even see it in the last game against Austin, where it was a very uninspiring attack. And yes, there are definitely injuries concerned for the St. Louis team, but still, even with the injuries, this team should not be as flat as they are on the attacking end, and that has really frustrated St. Louis fan, especially with the way that Olaf Malbert set his team up in the beginning. But in terms of the all-time meeting of this rivalry, 3-2 and 3, and again, I still don't know exactly. They never really kind of name exactly what this rivalry is. So I'm just gonna guess this is kind of like your Midwest kind of classic with both of these teams based out of the Midwest. But yeah, there's no doubt that we'll see how this latest chapter of this rivalry will begin. And I did say that the Houston Dynamo might have the best chance to finally end their winless run. I might take it back. I think Sporting KC definitely have a chance, and especially with the way that this is a rivalry game, and especially with a new interim head coach. We saw what happened with Montreal. They instantly look much better, and you kind of feel like maybe that might be the case with the Sporting KC side with how stale Peter Remise has gone for that team. Maybe they'll have an instant response, and especially a new change of voice. It's been 16 years since they have a new change of voice that is not Peter Remise. Maybe that will really re-energize this team, and will be probably very up for it for this game against their biggest rival. Now, moving on, we got the Vancouver Whitecaps versus the Colorado Rapids. So for the Whitecaps, I'm going to say the same thing I said about LAFC. They might be another team that might be resting a lot of their players, and I think Jasper Sorensen has done a good job in terms of that. Though again, with some of the injuries that he's been dealing with, he's kind of almost a little bit limited in terms of how he can rotate, and especially with the way that this is not a deep team whatsoever. He's kind of hamstring in terms of that, where sometimes he kind of had to play most of his starters out of the fact that they're there's not really a lot of depth on this team. And we'll see whether or not if Colorado can take advantage of it. They have a 3-2-1 record. They're to off to their one of their best start of their season, and are coming off of probably the most impressive win that they have this season against Charlotte FC at home. This game starts at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. All-time meeting 13-8 and 11 in favor of the Colorado Rapids. So yeah, like I said, for the Rapids, there's a chance they can get themselves free points in this game if they do face against a relatively weaker Vancouver side. And for Vancouver, I know they got off that incredible start to the season, but they definitely have hit back down to earth. And this is expected. I mean, I never think that this unbelievable run that Vancouver is in is going to always continue. And these last two games, it's kind of shown that this team has kind of dropped back down to earth, especially with the way that they have CONCACAF Champions Cup commitment. It's always hard to balance both of those and still have a perfect record. And in many ways, I would say it's almost a miracle the fact that they've been able to stay themselves self unbeaten for so long, and also having that perfect record despite the fact that they're balancing MLS and CONCACAF Champions Cup play at the same time. Now, moving on into the last Saturday game, we got San Diego FC versus Seattle Sounders, and you would think that both of these records might be misleading, but no, that's exactly the record it is. Because coming into this game, you would have never expected San Diego would be the much better team against the Seattle Sounders, but that's kind of how it is. I mean, San Diego, it's been a dream start to their life in MLS with a 3-2-1 record. Whereas for the Seattle Sounders, it feels like they're having the same problem as last season. The attack is just not able to get going. Yes, I know they truly miss Jordan Morris on this team, but still, I mean, this team with the way that they've been taught about how good their depth is, it should still be much better than what they are on the attacking end. It just feels very stale, just like what we saw last season as well. Now, this of course is the first ever meeting between both of these teams. 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific start. It's also the only late game that is this season, or not this season, but for this week as well. But yeah, there's no doubt that again, I'm very surprised to see how when I look at this matchup that again I'm very amazed how the record is. You wouldn't have not expected San Diego would be off to a great start compared to the Sounders, and there's a chance they could get another win against a Sounders team that, like I said, they really need Jordan Morris back in this team, and maybe he might need another replacement in terms of Paul Arriola as well, because again he's out for a long-term injury. I think they'll at least get a little relief because of that. Now, looking at the Sunday games, we start off with NYCFC versus Minnesota United. By the way, this I think might be the first time in a while that I've seen both of my team is playing on Sunday. It is not very often that both of my team play on Sunday, and that's kind of the case with NYCFC playing against Minnesota United. This game starts at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. NYCFC have a 2-2-2 record. Minnesota have a 3-2-1 record in terms of head-to-head. 2-1-2 is the head-to-head meeting, and this is kind of interesting because I think there's no doubt that we know how this game is going to play out. NYCFC is gonna play exactly what they like to do. Like they like to have the possession. They like to dictate the play. Minnesota clearly does not want to have the ball, and I think they're going to be sitting deep a lot in this game. But again, it's going to be interesting to see which team can actually work the way that they like to play, and which team will have the more success. Because again, it feels like NYCFC is more comfortable of having the ball and trying to trying to work the ball around, where Minnesota, of course, love to go directly on the attack. I would also say that because on the small pitch at Yankee Stadium, you could say maybe that kind of favors the team that likes to defend a lot and stay compact, because you don't have a lot of pitch to cover, and Minnesota is one of the toughest teams to trying to break down. They don't usually leave a lot of space until they, of course, decided to do so in late in the games that we've seen. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if maybe NYCFC might be patient throughout this game, because again, Minnesota has shown that they have had problem in terms of keeping the leads. But at the same time, we'll see whether or not if they can hit on the counter attack, and especially for a narrow pitch, it's not going to be easy to try to hit on the counter attack. And especially, I think the other thing I'll also mention about NYCFC, they desperately want to bounce back after what happened last week. I mean, you talk about not able to hold on to lead. Man, NYCFC, the meltdown that they had in the last game, there is no doubt that there's really one way you can respond after a meltdown. I said it about Minnesota when they play against Sporting KC, that meltdown that they had to respond relatively well. Obviously, Minnesota didn't do that against the Galaxy. We'll see whether or not if NYCFC can do that here against Minnesota. And then moving on into the next one. So this is the game that I'm planning to go, which is the San Jose Earthquakes versus DC United. And I'm gonna once again reiterate what I said earlier before. I feel like this should absolutely be the Sunday night soccer game. Like if you're going to celebrate the fact that this is the 30th season, and this, of course, is the first ever game in MLS history back in 1996, and especially this is kind of like the Bruce Arena derby, with the way that it feels like it's a full circle moment of Bruce Arena playing against the team that he coached all the way back in 1996 with DC United. I mean, it's hard to believe the fact that about 30 years ago, Bruce Arena was the head coach for DC United in the first ever MLS game against the San Jose Clash. I mean, that just shows you how long Bruce Arena has been in this game, and he's always will forever known as the Godfather of U.S. soccer. But I feel like with all that kind of thing, and even if both of these teams are not very good, I mean, when it comes to the matchup itself, I don't think it's kind of anything special. But just for the occasion itself, and especially from Wise saw with the league website releasing a video talking about the 30th anniversary of this league in the 30th season. This game absolutely should have been the Sunday night soccer game. I would absolutely move both of these games if they would have just flex this game. But hey, I'm not the schedule maker. I'm just kind of biased or nostalgia toward history compared to see a game that maybe will feature Messi and friends on display, and maybe put on a shellacking against a struggling TFC side. But anyway, going back to this game between the Quakes and DC United, and besides the history, like I said, it's a game between two teams that I would also say maybe kind of a desperation derby for both of these teams, because it's been a while since both of these teams able to get a win. Both of these teams kind of got off to a similar start, a hot start, and then it's been kind of cooled off a little bit. For the Quakes, they finally did stop that bleeding with that 1-1 draw against the Sounders, because they lost three in a row coming into that one. But again, they couldn't hold on to the lead late in the game to get that massive 3 points against a DC team that, yeah, when they do face against real opponent, yeah, they definitely got find out. Now, when they do face against easy team, they at least sort of play a little bit better, although they have had their struggle before as well. So yeah, again, we'll see how this matchup it is. You could maybe say it's a desperation derby for both of these teams looking out to get themselves back to their strong start that they had. But in terms of the head-to-head meeting, 18-9 and 15 in favor of the San Jose Earthquakes, and this game will start at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. They also are mentioned that they might be selling some of the, well, actually, it's not they might be. they will be selling some San Jose Clash throwback kind of t-shirt. I might be looking forward to get some of it because again, I'm definitely gonna be wearing this just to kind of enjoy the throwback kind of moment between these two teams. That again, this matchup will always be forever known as the first matchup to kick off this league all the way back in 1996 around this time. Now, moving on to the Sunday night soccer game, and again, a game that I kind of complained. The fact that it probably shouldn't be a Sunday night soccer game is Inter Miami versus Toronto FC. And like I said, the reason why I don't think this game should be the marquee matchup, Messi might not even play in this game. Consider again, from what I heard, it seems like in the last game, I've heard that they said that he's still dealing with a right knee injury, and maybe that's kind of the reason why he wasn't at his best in the last game. And I think for Javier Mascherano, there's no doubt he's going to try to protect his golden goose, especially with the way that they have a bigger game this weekend. And not to mention, without Messi, they still are perfectly fine. I mean, the supporting cast is performing better than ever before. We've seen this Inter Miami team, and you're facing against a TFC side that, yes, they finally stopped the bleeding of finally getting a good result against Vancouver. But do you think they really have any chance in this game against Inter Miami, who is 4-1-0, and they're probably going to be very upset after losing for the first time in all competition in the last game against LAFC. But in terms of the head-to-head matchup, again, just kind of also show you the dominance that Inter Miami has over TFC, 9-0 into in favor of TFC. This is a team that just love playing against Toronto, and this is even back before Messi and friends arrive. This team always tends to get a resort against TFC, and I don't see how that's going to be any different in this game, even if they're not going to have Messi in this game. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at all of the games for match week number 7. Again, I most likely are not going to be able to watch most of these games, so most likely I'm going to be relying on highlights a lot. But I think when I do get to the hotel tomorrow, I'll at least review the matinee games, that is, and then when I come back on Sunday, I'll probably do the review of all 3 of these games, and then if I have times, I'll start doing part 1 of the review for match week number 7, because I don't think I'm going to go crazy like I did last week, where I'm going to do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games all at the same time in a big jumbo bowl review. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and as always, let me know in the comments below your prediction for all 15 of these games. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.